Your college basketball weekend is here.
Rise and fire. Down it. Instant classic. The slipper still fits.
When they need baskets, they go to them.
2 to tie, a 3 will win it.
From Cinderella runs to covering at the buzzer, we've got your winning playbook covered. This is BetQL U with John Martin and RJ Choppy, presented by BetMGM.
Feel it! Feel it! Can ya? Do ya? We're here. We're in the thick of March of the NCAA tournament, and we're winding down, RJ. You don't look like you're feeling the madness, and it's disappointing me greatly.
Where are you getting this nonsense from? Where are you? Where are you getting that ridiculous take from? I've never seen such a thing.
I don't know. I'm trying to put out the madness, gravitational pull, man. And I don't know if it's that, and we're recording this on Friday afternoon. I don't know if it's that. It might just be some nervousness. That's what I think it is. I think you're muy nervoso.
Listen,
nervoso.
It's been a day, okay? So I worked this morning, did my regular radio show on the Fan in Dallas. 10 a.m. I was done. Clocked out at 10 a.m. Went to the gym. Got out some, got my game day lift in. Went home, mowed the lawn. Had to mow the lawn, and then showered. Maybe got a little bit of a nap in, pregame nap. Now I'm just kind of in that time where it's a no man's land time. I got my kids. My kids got a baseball game coming up here. So it's a Friday, Saturday tournament for Easter weekend instead of Saturday, Sunday. So as soon as this is done, I'm going to go there. I'm going to go watch a play. I'm going to get home, and I'm going to watch basketball tonight, man. And I hopefully see this time of the year. I'm very used to disappointment. Very used to disappointment. Something about this year feels a little bit different, but I'm very used to disappointment. And I was surprised today when the line for that game crept up and up and up and up and up a little bit. So we'll see where it's at. But yeah, it's some nervous energy. There's no doubt about that.
Well, look, all that's on the line is an Elite Eight appearance. Would that be second ever?
Yeah. I think 08. Wow. 08 or 09, one of the two.
Yeah.
Was first.
It was it was 08. It was that year. Yeah. How about that? Yeah, get it, man. It'll be fun. And you're right. That number continues to creep up.
No, it was 2010. I'm sorry. It was 2010.
Oh, 2010? Was it 2010?
It was 2010. It was the Butler-Duke year. That's what it was. Butler-Duke.
Why did I think it was 08? I guess because you guys were awesome that year.
Yeah, 08 was Chris Lofton had a 2 seed, lost to Wichita State. And then 2010. Yeah, 2010.
Brutal.
2010 was the year.
Hey, this is BetQL U. We're here every week throughout the college football season. We've been with you every week throughout the college basketball season, and we are obviously here as college basketball season winds down. Just one more week left, really and truly, because the national championship game is going to be played on a Monday. So this is gonna be our second to last college basketball show of the year. I'm John Martin. He is RJ Choppy. And RJ, let's get into what we know, at least, about the Elite Eight, the matchups that we know about. Illinois holds on against Iowa State. Super impressive win by them. And they are going to be rewarded with a matchup against the 1 seed UConn. UConn, amazingly, is still an 8.5 point favorite. And I know this very well, and I appreciate Zach for spelling this out. Dating back to the start of last season's NCAA tournament. So if you take what they've done in this one and you go back to last one, they are 9-0 against the spread, straight up and against the spread.
Yep.
And as people well know by now, I faded them in 5 of those 6 last year and went broke doing it. Thankfully, wow. I've learned my lesson. RJ, and I decided in December we've talked about it. I'm not fading UConn anymore. Not saying I'm betting them, but I'm not fading them. And this is a number, RJ, where they're begging for Illinois money. They're begging for it. Give it to me. Give us, please. We'll give you 8.5. We'll give you 9.
Yeah.
But I ain't taking it. I'm not saying I'm
Nope.
betting UConn, RJ, but they will not be getting any Illinois money from me. What about you?
I thought about it when I saw that line. When I saw that line come out, I definitely thought about taking Illinois because I've been on Illinois this tournament. I mean, with a lot of my bets. I had them against Iowa State. I took a money line against Iowa State. The difference is that we have seen here UConn. They have reached UNLV 1991 territory, and I don't see Leitner and Hurley walking through anybody else's door, and that's the difference, right? They're a juggernaut right now. They are just rolling through now. They need a Herb Brooks. They need Herb Brooks, man. Somebody needs Herb Brooks to go give a speech. They need it was Kurt Russell to do some kind of Herb Brooks speech out there, and make fun of somebody's bruise and tell them to go on out there and kick some butt. Somebody needs a Herb Brooks moment because someone will beat these guys at some point. All right, they can't play perfect every time,
right?
But they are. And from a betting perspective,
amazing.
Like all the numbers would probably tell you take Illinois in the 8.5, right? Like I bet you, like you said, some sort of, dude. If it's been raining for 8 days in a row, you better bring an umbrella the next day, man. You better. And I can't sit here and in good conscience tell somebody, and no, Reese Davis, this is not a risk-free investment. You cannot go out there and and I can't in good conscience tell somebody to go on out there and bet against UConn right now. I just can't do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things where I've just been so unsuccessful at it. And I don't know what it is about this team specifically, RJ. I don't know. I mean, because they only have one true NBA player. We know for sure who is I guess they have two. Stephon Castle is going to be an NBA player, and then Kling is going to be an NBA player. But it's not like they're just littered up and down the roster with surefire NBA guys. But it's just like they want to do it. I'm not saying they want to cover, but they want to kick your rear end. I mean, they just do. And it's a personality from the coach, and it goes down and it trickles down. And look, a lot of these guys, man. Somebody asked me on a Discord I'm in last week, what number would you need to play the other team against UConn? And in this case, he was talking about San Diego State. And I said, I'd need 18. I would need 18 before I even – and RJ, even that would not have been close. I mean, I just can't remember a run like this. I can't remember an against the spread run like this. 29.5, we would have said, man, we're liquidating everything we have. San Diego State's not going to lose by 30. Come on, this is the Sweet 16. But they did. I've never seen in basketball, I've never seen I can't remember an against the spread run like this, especially like in the big games. That's the thing about UConn. And I'm not going to start trying to step in front of that train now. We're too far in the process.
No, I'm not. And you're right. I mean, they're not like, they're not littered with like top NBA talent. I mean, they got some guys, but they're not littered with it. I mean, that UNLV team, they have 3 of the top 12 picks that year. Like, It's just that was a different animal. It's a different animal, man. They were, and the only reason they lost is because they got beat by a team that had basically 3 of the top 12 picks. They had 2 number 1 picks essentially, or 2 top flight picks in Leitner and Hill. But that's it. That's the only reason why they lost. And Anthony got into foul trouble. It's going to take something like that. You're going to have to get them into foul trouble. There's no other way to do it right now. Like they're such. They try to like steal your lunch money too. Like they're bullies.
No question.
They don't want to. They want to just embarrass you. I don't know what Bobby did to Danny as kids to make Danny so angry, like so vengeful, so petty. I mean, he's doing exactly what all athletes do. He is making things up. Somehow, that dude took playing in Brooklyn and Boston as a sign of disrespect.
Yeah.
I don't know how.
He did.
And he was able to make it work. I have no idea how. I have no idea how. So this guy could be the child of Elon Musk and say the whole world is against me and convince himself that the whole world is against him and he has no advantages in life. This is it's the most insane. You couldn't explain this to somebody. You couldn't tell somebody this that just dropped down on Earth what's going on. But it's happening.
Right. It is happening. It is absolutely happening. And it's going to, look, I will say Illinois does, I think, in many ways present the best. And again, we're not talking about winning. This is how good UConn is. We're just talking about covering the damn spread. All right. We're not saying who can beat UConn. We're just asking who can cover a number against UConn. It's just as dominant a performance as you will ever see, especially in college basketball. Illinois does have Coleman Hawkins, who's been shooting the ball well, Domask, who's as good as it gets in terms of just controlling and orchestrating a game, and then we know Terrence Shannon Jr. can really, really get going. So is it that maybe would give you, though you're getting those three guys, you're getting them as 9-point dogs, is it that in the very least might intrigue you a little bit about that 8.5 9-point number?
Yeah, I just think Illinois is really good. I saw them. I mean, I've seen them a number of times this year. They're a hot basketball team, and they're a good one. They've got legitimate, NBA guys. They've got a good, solid team. I think they are absolutely alive, and I love their coach. I love their coach too. So, there's a lot of reasons why you would want to take Illinois. I don't know that I have the guts to do it though. I just don't know if I have the guts to bet against UConn. Especially single digits. Single digits. I mean, they could go out there tomorrow, or they could go out there in this game, and they could go and absolutely dog walk you.
Yep. And they want to do it.
And they want to do it. And I think it's got to the point where it's a psychological thing for the other team. If UConn gets up, if they open the game on a 11-2 run, I mean, how many teams are folding? I know there's still going to be 36 minutes left in the game, but how many of the teams are going to fold?
Yes, exactly. I mean, there was a time I was like, "Oh, San Diego State, they take the lead. It's not, they have experience. Didn't matter at all."
Nope.
All right, let's touch on the other.
And the other thing, and real quick, the other thing is that game was a 10-point game, relatively late, and then it ends up being 30.
You just have to laugh, man.
I know. I know.
You really do. You have to laugh. Okay, let's talk about the other game that we know of so far. That's Clemson-Bama. I think everybody had this in their Elite Eight. It was the most popular regional. There's no doubt about it. Clemson, Bama. This is basketball. I'm being told.
Basketball.
This is not football. But yes, it is. It's Trevor Lawrence versus Jalen Hurts, except it's in basketball. Clemson just really with a 3 straight super impressive defensive performances for them. And Alabama just out of nowhere kind of RKOs North Carolina and put them out of the damn thing. So can Clemson keep the defense up, or have they met their match in Alabama with as much as they chuck threes?
Boy, I'll tell you this. As a fan of a school that's never been to a Final Four, to sit there and see a rival that never gets anywhere anyway in college basketball be on the cusp of a Final Four and having to only go through Clemson, while you would be forced to go through Creighton and Purdue or Gonzaga. It's tough. This is not about where you play or seed. This is about draw. It's always been about draw. Tournament's always been about your draw. And, I'll tell you this, Clemson's got really good guard play. I think that's going to be a super fun game. You have two teams that have good guard play. One of them can absolutely light it up. Bama can light it up if they're playing well. Grant Nelson, I don't know where that came from. I don't know. I really don't. I mean, he was a decent player in the SEC, but I don't remember him playing like that. That was I am he kind of thing. That was big. And I think Alabama's the pick I would take. I like the over I think more than anything is that, I mean, Bama scores at will. And they can't stop anybody.
Yeah. Look, I hate watching Clemson play, but I'll be honest, it feels like a Clemson bet or nothing, just because of the way they've been guarding. And their guard play is really good. And I think it's going to be a hard matchup for those Alabama bigs to stay on the floor against PJ Hall and the chef. The chef. You got to love it. So it would be Clemson +3 or nothing for me. All right, hey, we got a lot more to touch on. We got some. Not Curry, the other chef, the Clemson edition of the chef. So we got a lot more to get to. We got coaching changes, hirings and firings, and got to touch on some of the losers as well, because they got some soul searching to do. So we'll do all that here on BetQL. Catch us on Odyssey, on the Odyssey app. Catch us on YouTube. We're here every single week talking all things college football, college basketball. We'll be back after this.
You've been listening to BetQL U, presented by BetMGM. If you missed any of the show, listen back anytime on the new and improved Odyssey app.
Chelsea, earlier in the show, we were talking a little bit about New Year's resolutions, blah, blah, blah. One thing I do need is I need a hobby. I need a new hobby. That's one of my goals. And I was thinking maybe I should retake up golf again. I used to play golf all the time, and I was decent at it. I was never going to blow anyone's mind, but I was pretty good. Now, I am summarily terrible. I suck at the game of golf now. But if you're going to commit to playing golf, you got to commit, and it's hard for me because I live right in the middle of the city, so I'd have to get myself some new clubs, have to start practicing, find some unis around the city, and I could do it, but if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it right. So you are someone, you can swing a club, you live right there on a golf course. Can you talk me into getting back into golf?
No, because it's a hobby that's very expensive, and it takes a ton of time. This is why women get so mad at their husbands for playing golf. It is not because we hate golf. It's because it takes, on the low end, 5 hours. And then you have to go to the driving range before, get some swings in. Then you want to get some beers with your boys after the round. So it just turns into an all-day affair. And I guess, you don't have kids or any, thing tying you down. You don't have a pet at home, or I guess you have Bijou, but, cats don't need to be taken out all the time. So I think that's the knock on golf, is that it just takes so damn long. So maybe there is another hobby that is less time, time
consuming.
What's the opposite of time consuming? That you could pick up that also does not cost a fortune. Because I don't know if you've looked at the prices of golf clubs. They're not cheap for the good ones.
No. Well, that's the problem too, is that's why I said, if I'm going to do this, I have to do this, because if you're going to spend that money, I don't want to do it and then have my clubs collect dust in my closet or anything like that. I think what you should do is you can swing. Your husband obviously plays golf. You get Blake a little starter set. Next thing you know, family golf outing.
Oh, we do have clubs for her.
There you go.
But it's just, again, golf takes forever. And also, it is the middle of January, or the 1st of January. It feels like the middle of January. So it's not the greatest weather for playing golf when it's 37 degrees out. So maybe this spring.
All right. Well, keep that in mind. Maybe it'll happen. I'll keep track for you.
Are you ready for the most interactive sports gambling show? Introducing BetQL's Send It In with PJ Glasser. We want to hear from you. Send It In is about your picks, your trends, and your fades. Share your thoughts, predictions, and your best daily best bets with the Send It In community. Set your reminders, mark your calendars, and get ready to send it in on weekday afternoons at 1 Eastern on Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. On your home for wagertainment, the BetQL Network, presented by BetMGM. No one brings the wow factor like the BetQL network.
When did that happen?
Today.
And instantly, the crowd goes wild.
We celebrate the women of wagertainment.
Welcome back to BetQL Daily, presented by BetMGM.
Well, I did the right strategy there. Set you up for just complimenting me.
You know what? I get that.
Never miss a minute of the action. Download the BetQL app to take us anywhere you go and watch all of the shows on Twitch TV/BetQL. Presented by the Kings of Sportsbooks. BetMGM.
Chelsea, earlier in the show, we were talking a little bit about New Year's resolutions, blah, blah, blah. One thing I do need is I need
Let's get back to BetQL U, presented by BetMGM.
Welcome back to BetQL U here on the Odyssey Sports app. I'm John Martin. He is RJ Choppy, talking all things college basketball here as we wind our way down through this tournament. We've talked about 2 Elite Eight games that we know of. Obviously, this is recorded, so we unfortunately will not know the back half. But we do want to wish those 4 teams good luck. Right, RJ? Good luck. Have fun.
Well, 3 of them.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, depending. Hey, yeah, that's exactly right. Good point. Good point. So anyway, good luck with all your games, and we'll see you on the other side. This show is about sportsmanship for the most part, 75% of the way. Anyway, yes. As we proceed, there are winners, and for there to be winners, RJ, there must be losers. As we look through the NCAA tournament, definitely you would say some very disappointing L's along the way. North Carolina last night, definitely on the list. Arizona last night, definitely on the list. I don't think anything will quite top Kentucky. I think if I was ranking it, I would probably have Kentucky 1, Auburn 2, Arizona and North Carolina would be battling it out for number 3. How would you rank? How would you rank who is more disappointing between Arizona and North Carolina?
Oh, that's a tough one. I think Arizona's more disappointing. First off, it's basically a home game for them, right? They're playing. It's a very easy trip to LA. There's a lot of Arizona alums who live in the greater LA area. Clemson doesn't. I mean, they had to. I mean, I don't know that any team had to travel further than Clemson. Maybe North Carolina was the only one that actually had to travel further than Clemson. Nobody else did. And that's the crappy thing is that you had 3 schools, all in the Southeast, all having to travel out to LA. Just going to do that, right? But Yeah, I think Arizona's more disappointed. They were playing a perceived lesser opponent in Clemson. A 6 seed versus a 4, and you had a home court advantage. Like, you should have won that game, and you have a guard who has been there before and done it and done a really good job at it, and he's a really good player. So I think that they would be the ones that really kind of stood out. They took the bigger L. It's not as big of an L as Kentucky's,
right?
Earlier this tournament. And I think the second biggest L Kentucky took is that, if you ask Kentucky fans, is that Cal's coming back. That's the biggest L that they took. Man, you can do a lot worse to Coach Cal. I'll tell you that right now. Do a lot worse. You want to get rid of him? Go ahead. I remember Kentucky before Coach Cal got there. I remember them cycling through Billy Gillispie and Tubby Smith. I remember them not being happy with either one of them. So, you get what you wish for, man.
Yeah.
Go for it. Texas?
Yeah.
Texas? Yep. You wanted Rick Barnes out of there. Okay, I get it. There was a glass ceiling. Shaka didn't work. You know what happened with Chris Beard, and then now with Rodney Terry. Okay, all right, get rid of him. Value relevancy. Teams don't value relevancy enough.
Well, we'll get to that. I want to get to Kentucky sort of separately and that decision and everything and how it can be successful. But I think I would say North Carolina is more disappointing, and the only reason I say that is because they brought back their top 2 guys. They brought back their top 2 dudes, who had been in the championship game, had been together forever. They got Caleb Love out of there. They blamed everything on him, and maybe look. I'm sure everybody has their own sort of side of things, but I just feel like that North Carolina team should have gone further than the Sweet 16 with them having the production from their top 2 guys that have been in the program for as long as they've been in the program. There's no question that RJ Davis going 0 of 9 from 3 in his last game. He's kind of screaming into the void. He's screaming at the basketball gods. I would say with that as a 1 seed for sure. I would say they're a little bit more disappointing than Arizona. I think Arizona kind of ran into a hot team, right? Like Clemson is just, that's 3 straight games now where they've gotten these otherwise really good shooting teams to perform under, their average for the season. And maybe there's not that much separation, right? I don't know. Arizona has had we talked about them all year long, some really random dumb losses. And you can sort of just add that one to the mix. Like there was no way I thought after they came back and took the lead again, or for the first time, I should say, that they would be giving it back. Right? I think we all kind of had that thought like, they took the lead. They've stabilized. Everything's going to be fine now. But they're clearly just not that tough. They couldn't get stops, and they were pretty thin. So they had some flaws kind of to begin with. But this North Carolina team should have been a Final Four team. They should have, they should be playing Clemson for the right to go to a Final Four. And I think that's the part of it, right, RJ? That I think that's what makes it a little bit more disappointing. Carolina is going to the Final Four if they beat Alabama, because they would have beaten the crap out of Clemson. That's a conference game, So I think that's the one, and I think it does beg the question a little bit to me of Hubert Davis as the long-term guy. You mentioned relevancy, and I agree for the most part, but there are certain programs where that's not the bar. It can't be the bar,
right? And
Carolina is one of them. Yes, he went to he made a miraculous run to the national title game. What is it now? 2 years ago. But that was after a pretty bad regular season, right?
Last year. They were.
You got there, so you get the credit. If they win it, who cares, right? But we don't really that UConn title with Shabazz Napier and Ryan Boatwright and Kevin Ollie, we don't really hold that title in high regard. That was just a random championship in the annals of history. Last night, you have a guy that played at Louisville taking a high leverage shot. That's awful. You cannot have that. You cannot have that in the year 2024. So I just think the questions about Hubert get a little louder, and they're loud too, as you mentioned, for Cal. And you seem to be on the boat of, and I think it's why they didn't make a change. They don't know where they would turn at Kentucky. They don't know who would take the job. They don't know who would be good. And I think that's probably a real concern. I lived it in Memphis. When Cal left Memphis for Kentucky, Memphis went through about 5, 6, 7 different coaches before they landed on Josh Pastor, the 32-year-old assistant that had never been a head coach, because nobody wants to follow Cal. He wins at such a level, or at least he did at Memphis, that people felt like it was impossible to replicate. Now, maybe they don't feel that way as much given the recency of Kentucky and how kind of down it's been. But I do think, RJ, that is the point, that if they knew who they could get, they probably make the change, but they don't. And they don't want to wind up doing what Louisville just did and hiring a third or fourth guy on their list in Pat Kelsey.
No, they don't know where they would go. I mean, they know who they would ask. I mean, I know who their first call would be. I don't know if he says yes. Their first call is going to be Dan Hurley. And I look, I mean, I can't believe I saw this this was actually spoken or texted, typed into Twitter. And I can't remember who the account was. It was a major writer's account. And people were saying that, Dan wouldn't leave. UConn's a better job. And I was like, what? UConn's a better job than Kentucky? We sure about that? Like, are we doing a recency bias here? Like, I don't know, man. Kentucky seems to me, they're on the Mount Rushmore of all-time programs. With Duke and Carolina and Kansas, because UCLA's fallen off. They haven't been an all-time great program in 40 years. And I know UConn has done so many great things over the last 25 years. They got this 5 titles or whatever. But I don't know. I don't think that anybody really thinks that UConn is a better job. First of all, they probably can't afford what Kentucky can to pay him. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm just so old school that I don't realize that UConn has passed up Kentucky, and maybe Dan doesn't want to leave the Northeast. But I know but you're right. Like, not knowing, you can't fire somebody when you don't know who you're going to replace them with, because you can't get worse.
Right. And I think, look, I don't think Dan's he's got it too set up there. But look, I mean, Cal, don't we all think that unless Cal makes an Elite Eight run next year, that he's going to be asked to, like, what's the threshold? Is it Sweet 16? Is that enough, or is that not enough?
I mean, get out of the first weekend for starters. That'd be nice,
right,
if you're Kentucky, But then it becomes about your draw. I think a lot of this is you got now this year. There was nothing they could have said about their draw this year. Nothing they could have said about it. Who would they have gotten in the second round? NC State.
Mm-hmm.
If they won, I mean, like if they beat Oakland, so they would have got right. NC State.
That would have been a Sweet 16. Because we know NC State won. Yeah, I mean, I don't remember whose game tipped first, but it doesn't matter. I mean, either one of those teams, they would be favored over. So it doesn't. I mean, it's you left a lot of money on the table, and it was we love to poke holes in these teams, but my God, that's got a top 5 pick on it, 2 top 5 picks on it, in Rod Dillingham and Reed Shepherd. Yep. I mean, what are we talking about here? This is not some, woe-begotten down on their luck roster. This is as good as it gets in college basketball. They're young, but
it is.
And they're NBA players.
That's the thing. I think a lot of this that we're missing is this is very much a COVID thing. Cal will be back to doing what he's doing. All these losses they've incurred are basically in the COVID years where everybody gets that 5th or 6th year even. I mean, how many teams have 25-year-olds on them? Right? I mean, how many teams have guys that are just, I mean, if they were in the NBA, they'd be already on their 2nd contract, and they're in college still. And that's because of these COVID years. And if you're a bunch of 18-year-old kids and you're up against 24, 25-year-olds, dude, you got you're gonna have problems. You are gonna have problems in that game.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, we hear that a lot, right? Like, here in Memphis, it's like, oh, Penny needs to change. In Lexington, it's Cal needs to change. But how often and how much do you think that's really happening? Like, these are grown men. These are grown men who have objectively been successful in all of their jobs for their entire lives. And you think they're just going to change on a dime like that? Like, I don't see it, man. I don't really think that all of a sudden Cal is going to become some master of the portal where he was getting the NBA players and the NBA guards beforehand. Now he's just going to all of a sudden become he's going to nail the train. I mean, maybe it could happen, RJ, but I'm skeptical is what I would say.
Now, because, you first of all, you don't know. Guys in the transfer portal seem like they're more mercenary than anything. Whereas the high school kids, you could kind of get them and mold them how you want them to be. And if they leave, they leave. There's also a risk. I mean, you can't just throw 8 new guys together and tell them to go play basketball. I mean, you could have all the talent in the world and it still might not work. It's a lot of coaching. Yep. So, look, in the football landscape, Dion, I think I read Dion hasn't made an in-home visit yet. He's going all portal. And Cal is going to go all freshman.
Yeah. And then you're going to wonder why the results are what they are. Or maybe you won't maybe you won't wonder. I mean, just like anything else, it's got to be a blend. You can't take too much of one thing because that can go poorly too. You need to find multi-year transfers. You need to find guys you can develop. That's what UConn has. UConn has Klingon came in as a freshman. Tristan Newton was a multi-year transfer, mixed in with a couple of one-year guys here and there. Stephon Castle is a high school recruit. You just have to find your blend. And that's not easy in this day and age. The process is totally different, but the best ones are going to master it. And if you can't, handle the heat, you got to get out of the kitchen. Go take your ball and go home like Coach K. I mean, it's just you're either going to keep up in this day and age and fight for it, or you can't. And so I'd say get off the porch. This is for the big dogs. No more little dog stuff. Yeah. This is big dogs only in 2024. All right, we'll talk about some of the hires that have been made in college basketball. Some certainly head scratching ones, I would say, and some leaps of faith certainly being taken in the world of college basketball. All that and more on BetQL U. We'll be back after this.
You've been listening to BetQL U, presented by BetMGM. If you missed any of the show, listen back anytime on the new and improved Odyssey app.
Chelsea, earlier in the show, we were talking a little bit about New Year's resolutions, blah, blah, blah. One thing I do need is I need a hobby. I need a new hobby. That's one of my goals. And I was thinking maybe I should retake up golf again. I used to play golf all the time, and I was decent at it. I was never going to blow anyone's mind, but I was pretty good. Now, I am summarily terrible. I suck at the game of golf now. But if you're going to commit to playing golf, you got to commit, and it's hard for me because I live right in the middle of the city, so I'd have to get myself some new clubs, have to start practicing, find some unis around the city, and I could do it. But if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it right. So you are someone, you can swing a club. You live right there on a golf course. Can you talk me into getting back into golf?
No, because it's a hobby that's very expensive and it takes a ton of time. This is why women get so mad at their husbands for playing golf. It is not because we hate golf. It's because it takes, on the low end, 5 hours. And then you have to go to the driving range before, get some swings in. Then you want to get some beers with your boys after the round. So it just turns into an all-day affair. And I guess, you don't have kids or any, thing tying you down. You don't have a pet at home, or I guess you have Bijou, but, cats don't need to be taken out all the time. So I think that's the knock on golf, is that it just takes so damn long. So maybe there is another hobby that is less time, time
consuming.
What's the opposite of time consuming? That you could pick up that also does not cost a fortune. Because I don't know if you've looked at the prices of golf clubs. They're not cheap for the good ones.
No. Well, that's the problem too, that's why I said, if I'm going to do this, I have to do this, because if you're going to spend that money, I don't want to do it and then have my clubs collect dust in my closet or anything like that. I think what you should do is you can swing. Your husband obviously plays golf. You get Blake a little starter set. Next thing you know, family golf outing.
Oh, we do have clubs for her.
There you go.
But it's just, again, golf takes forever. And also, it is the middle of January or the 1st of January. It feels like the middle of January. So it's not the greatest weather for playing golf when it's 37 degrees out. So maybe this spring.
All right. We'll keep that in mind. Maybe it'll happen. I'll keep track for you.
Are you ready for the most interactive sports gambling show? Introducing BetQL Send It In with PJ Glasser. We want to hear from you. Send It In is about your picks, your trends, and your fades. Share your thoughts, predictions, and your best daily best bets with the Send It In community. Set your reminders, mark your calendars, and get ready to send it in on weekday afternoons at 1 Eastern on Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. On your home for wagertainment, the BetQL Network, presented by BetMGM. No one brings the wow factor like the BetQL Network.
When did that happen?
Today.
And instantly,
Yes.
the crowd goes wild.
We celebrate the women of wagertainment.
Welcome back to BetQL Daily, presented by BetMGM.
Well, I did the right strategy there. Set you up for just complimenting me.
You know what? I get that.
Never miss a minute of the action. Download the BetQL app to take us anywhere you go and watch all of the shows on Twitch TV/BetQL. Presented by the Kings of Sportsbooks. BetMGM. Let's get back to BetQL U, presented by BetMGM.
Welcome back. BetQL U is our show here for just a few more minutes. And we've talked about the tournament. We've talked about the Elite Eight games that we know of at this moment. We've talked about the losers. But now we are on to the carousel portion of college basketball. And let's start with the big one here, RJ, in Louisville. Firing Kenny Payne, clearly not really having a plan beyond guys they would have liked to get, and settling on Pat Kelsey, the former Winthrop and Charleston coach, who has been to the tournament several times, has not won a game at Charleston in the tournament, but again, has been to the NCAA tournament several times. Is that a commentary on the search or the job in this case, RJ?
Oh, I think that the market tells you what your job is every time, right? The fans and the media may think the job is one thing, but the market tells you what your job is more often than not. And maybe the job is not as appealing as many people would think. I'd have to go back and do a deep dive into this, but outside of when Pitino was there, right? What were they? What have they been? That's the question, right? That's the big issue. Mm-hmm. You get your title, you win your title. Then Pitino's gone a couple years after that, mm-hmm. and it's hard to sustain that. I mean, let's be fair. Like Duke and Carolina, they're not the same job they were with Roy and Coach K. still a glamorous job because it's still there. They're still good every year. What's UCLA right now? What's UCLA's job? Is that still a great job? I don't know. Maybe what's Syracuse right now? Is that a great job? Again, like those are questions you got to answer. Like great jobs, and I mean great jobs. Those schools stay good regardless of who the coach is.
Yeah, look, I mean, Louisville had the 2 title run with Denny Crum, right? They had in the 80s. So they went to 6 Final Fours. But again, that was, Denny Crum. I mean, Denny Crum kind of made that job what it was, just like Jim Boeheim made Syracuse what that job was, just like Jim Calhoun made the UConn job what it was. I mean, the way this works so many times in college sports, Mike Krzyzewski, the coach makes the job. And with any luck, his successor is able to maintain it, keep it where it is. And Louisville probably thought they kind of got back to that with Pitino, but it's hard. Memphis going through kind of the same thing. Memphis and Louisville are pretty similar in that they are in cities. They are off-campus, arenas, and they have high expectations. They pay, so I think there's, especially now that Louisville's in the ACC, I think there's no reason to think that they can't get another coach. But I'm skeptical on the Pat Kelsey thing. I saw some Twitter footage earlier today of Pat Kelsey getting into his office, and he was like, "Wow, I can't believe this is my office." And I'm like, on one hand, I'm like, that's wholesome and all that, but is this job too big for this guy? That's what I think about when like, bro, you've been a head coach for a long time. This is not your first office that you've ever had. I mean, so that's the small things, but it worries me. This is a big boy job now. He's going to have to play Duke and Carolina and Miami and Clemson and Wake Forest. There's going to be no reprieve for him, and that's the kind of stuff that makes me worry.
Yeah, I mean, look, now maybe he gets to play Duke and Carolina and all those schools. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe Duke takes the Big 12 up on their reported offer and bolts.
True. True.
And I think Louisville's a good job, but I think one of the issues is, I tell you, man, if you're a mid-major, you take the job, right? Because it's a Power 5 job and it's money. But who feels confident in taking a job that isn't in the Big 10 or the SEC right now? I just don't think anybody feels confident in taking that job. You're not going to convince. I'll tell you this: you're not going to convince a Big 10 or an SEC coach to leave for Louisville right now, because you might be in the American in 3 years.
Right.
So no offense to the American, but like if you're already there, if you're already in the club, you don't leave the club. This is like the SEC in football went from, they went for decades. Like we're talking about like pre-war. Before a football coach left an SEC school voluntarily for another one. And they finally did. I think it was Hal Mummy. I think he left. All right. That's it. You don't leave SEC schools for other football jobs. You just don't leave it. And, then then it happened. It happened more and more. But if I'm a college coach, if you're not leaving the Big 10 or the SEC for a non-job in that conference, just because of the uncertainty. Those 2 conferences will be here in 10 years. I don't know about the rest of them.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely a fair call. I do. The landscape changes every single day, and what was a good job 10 years ago may no longer be today. So that's the thing you definitely have to stay on top of. And again, this could all age terribly, and Pat Kelsey's going to be great, but I just don't see it at the moment. All right, some other ones. Washington going with Danny Sprinkle. So Washington, just to kind of get everybody up to speed, they lost their AD, they lost their football coach, they lost the national championship game, they lost their quarterback, and they lost their basketball coach after firing him. Pretty tough year for Washington athletics. Oh, by the way, I know it's good on paper, but life's about to get a lot harder in the Big 10.
It is. It is a lot harder. It's about to get a lot harder in the Big 10. Boy, I keep forgetting that. I had to think about that for a second. I was like, wait a second, what is he talking about? And then, oh yeah, conference realignment. But it is going to get harder. But it's a no-brainer. You what?
It's like you can't even keep up with who's where now.
Right. Like, do we remember that SMU and Cal and Stanford are going to be in the ACC next year? Remember that one? Like, it's like I had to be reminded of that.
I did not. I was reminded like 2 weeks ago. I did not remember past that.
Yeah. Again, it's a no-brainer though. You got to take the job. You got to take it. It is going to be more difficult, but there have been. It's not a never happens. Like, look, you have seen coaches from mid-major programs go and have success at the major level. Nate Oates, right? He's doing it. Bruce Pearl did it. Shaka did it. There's Brad Stevens did it. He did it in the NBA, but he still did it, right? You can have success at the mid-major level and then go and have that same success at the major college level. It's difficult though, and then Shaka, and I'll use this from experience with Shaka. He found this out real quick. When he was in the Colonial, he was probably the best coach in a lot of the games. When he got to the Big 12, he's just an average coach. They're all good coaches in the Big 12. They can all recruit. He doesn't have a recruiting advantage. His recruiting advantage in the Big 12 was that he was at Texas, but he wasn't out coaching anybody else. He's not an elite head coach. At least he wasn't at the time. Now he's gotten a lot better, I think, but he didn't have a coaching and a player advantage every game. It's just more difficult to do.
Yeah, no question. So then we'll see how it goes with Danny Sprinkle. But makes sense, right? Makes sense. West Virginia going with Darren DeVries from Drake. You like that one?
Yeah, I think Drake had a really good year, man. And weren't they a chic pick that everybody was picking?
They were
this year too,
and then they were up 8 with whatever left and could not close the deal once again. Second straight year, unbelievable.
Mm-hmm. I think West Virginia is a sneaky good job. I like it. I mean, they've had good teams and they had really good coaches. I mean, they went from Beeline to Huggins. I think it's a sneaky good job. Multiple coaches have won there. I mean, you may not be able to win the title there, but you can make a Final Four run. We've seen it happen. I like West Virginia, the program, so I think it's in a good location. You're close enough to some of those big cities on the East Coast where you convince somebody to come out to the country. But I think it's I like the hire. I like the hire.
And then we haven't talked about him yet, and we should. Michigan hires Dusty May. Disappointing year for them, no doubt about it. They brought back everybody from a Final Four run a year ago, and they get packed up in the first round by Northwestern. But Michigan does hire Dusty May. Are you of the opinion that if you can do it at a place like FAU, then it should come pretty easy for you at Michigan, or do you think you'll have some resistance?
It should come easy because you have so many more resources. I don't know what FAU's budget was, but I guarantee you Michigan's is higher. So that's one thing, and he has shown that he can win and he can recruit. Now it's completely different recruiting bases. He's got to get in with the coaches in Flint and in Detroit and in Lansing. He's got to get in with the coaches in Chicago. He's got to get in the coach with Indianapolis. At FAU, you went down the street to Miami, Fort Lauderdale, right? Orlando, Tampa. I mean, I'd be willing to bet. I haven't looked at the roster, but I'd be willing to bet they didn't go very far. And it's just a completely different talent pool. But having that M on your shirt gets you in every room you want.
No question. There is no doubt about it. Hey, that's going to do it for us on this week's edition of BetQL U. The carousel rolls on. The NCAA tournament goes on. The games have been good. The teams, for the most part, these are the best teams in the country still playing. The upsets happened in round 1 and 2. They were pretty much contained there, and it's been the teams that we've been talking about all year long still playing. I like when that happens because it sort of validates the discourse. What I would hate to have happen is we talk about Purdue, UConn, Houston all season long, and then they get to the first weekend and they're gone. It's like, well, what was all that time for? Well, obviously those are some of the teams that are far and away the best and have been the best, and they're still playing as of now. So should be a fun rest of the tournament, obviously, with the Elite Eight and then the Final Four. We'll be back next week. We'll be breaking down all things Final Four as we whittle this down here on BetQL U. Again, you can catch us on the Odyssey app. You can catch us on YouTube, on Twitch. We are everywhere wherever you download your podcasts. So make sure you catch us every single week during the college football and the college basketball season. Hope everybody has a great weekend. Hope you win all your bets. Hope we get treated to some great basketball as we enjoy, the last few games of college basketball in 23-24. It's going to do it for us. For RJ Choppy, I'm John Martin. Thanks for hanging with us, and we'll see you next week here on BetQL U.
You've been listening to BetQL U, presented by BetMGM. If you missed any of the show, listen back anytime on the new and improved Odyssey app.
Chelsea, earlier in the show, we were talking a little bit about New Year's resolutions, blah, blah, blah. One thing I do need is I need a hobby. I need a new hobby. That's one of my goals. And I was thinking maybe I should retake up golf again. I used to play golf all the time, and I was decent at it. I was never going to blow anyone's mind, but I was pretty good. Now, I am summarily terrible. I suck at the game of golf now. But if you're going to commit to playing golf, you got to commit, and it's hard for me because I live right in the middle of the city, so I'd have to get myself some new clubs, have to start practicing, find some unis around the city, and I could do it, but if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it right. So you are someone, you can swing a club, you live right there on a golf course. Can you talk me into getting back into golf?
No, because it's a hobby that's very expensive, and it takes a ton of time. This is why women get so mad at their husbands for playing golf. It is not because we hate golf. It's because it takes, on the low end, 5 hours. And then you have to go to the driving range before, get some swings in. Then you want to get some beers with your boys after the round. So it just turns into an all-day affair. And I guess, you don't have kids or any, thing tying you down. You don't have a pet at home, or I guess you have Bijou, but, cats don't need to be taken out all the time. So I think that's the knock on golf, is that it just takes so damn long. So maybe there is another hobby that is less time, time
consuming.
What's the opposite of time consuming? That you could pick up that also does not cost a fortune. Because I don't know if you've looked at the prices of golf clubs; they're not cheap for the good ones.
No. Well, that's the problem too. That's why I said if I'm going to do this, I have to do this, because if you're going to spend that money, I don't want to do it and then have my clubs collect dust in my closet or anything like that. I think what you should do is you can swing. Your husband obviously plays golf. You get Blake a little starter set. Next thing you know, family golf outing.
Oh, we do have clubs for her.
There you go.
But it's just, again, golf takes forever. And also, it is the middle of January, or the 1st of January. It feels like the middle of January. So it's not the greatest weather for playing golf when it's 37 degrees out. So maybe this spring.
All right. Well, keep that in mind. Maybe it'll happen. I'll keep track for you.
Are you ready for the most interactive sports gambling show? Introducing BetQL's Send It In with PJ Glasser. We want to hear from you. Send It In is about your picks, your trends, and your fades. Share your thoughts, predictions, and your best daily best bets with the Send It In community. Set your reminders, mark your calendars, and get ready to send it in on weekday afternoons at 1 Eastern on Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. On your home for wagertainment, the BetQL Network, presented by BetMGM. No one brings the wow factor like the BetQL network.
When did that happen?
Today.
And instantly,
Yes.
the crowd goes wild.
We celebrate the women of wagertainment.
Welcome back to BetQL Daily, presented by BetMGM.
Well, I did the right strategy there. Set you up for just complimenting me.
You know what? I get that.
Never miss a minute of the action. Download the BetQL app to take us anywhere you go and watch all of the shows on Twitch TV/BetQL. Presented by the Kings of Sportsbooks. BetMGM.